Hey, everybody, this is Mark Dennebaum here coming from the Stewed at 25/8 Studios with my, what'd you say I was the other day? Your compadre?
You said the compadre, yes.
I said compadre or you
Yes.
said compadre?
No, you did, and I paraphrased it, so.
How do you paraphrase compadre?
With quotations.
So I'm here with my compatriot, the beautiful, the talented, the amazing, the does more than I will ever do in one day in my entire life, Stacey Toy. The last podcast we did was with Tom Borthwick at the Scranton School District. We're getting a lot of, strangely enough, not negative feedback. And we're gonna keep doing these every week. And this week we have the distinct honor of having author Dave Hess on. Dave, do you want to say real quick how he came into our lives? I know we talk about it in the podcast, but
we're standing outside.
Without Dave here, it's probably
we're standing outside at the warehouse behind Cooper's where we're located, and this man just comes up, and he comes walking towards us, and Marky
with a goatee and a Newsies hat, and
with a white goatee. He's an older gentleman, and he's got like longer hair. Oh yeah, very handsome,
yeah.
and Marky says to him, "Hey, can we help you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm looking for Chad." And then all of a sudden, we just became instant best friends. Like we knew each other for years.
Yeah, Chad actually showed up, and Dave ignored him.
I know.
Yeah, it was a wonderful.
Chad, our photographer from Storyteller Photography, who did do a wonderful job with his new pictures.
Yeah, so just to give you context, Chad actually did the cover art and did the headshots for Dave. Now, Dave is an incredibly intriguing, interesting guy. Phenomenal human being, interesting human being, has accomplished so much in his life. He's a dropout from high school, a Vietnam vet, a DEA vet. He's been an instructor down in Quantico. He has been in Afghanistan, and somewhere in between, he found a way to be a rather amazing author. So we wanted to have him on the show because number one, he's our friend, and damn, is he interesting. And number two is that we want people to read his books. Because they're very interesting, insightful about the drug war, great characters, and moving all around the world basically. Am I leaving anything out so far?
Well, and he also says that they're based off of experiences or things that he's either experienced personally or in like with other people that he's seen, which is also cool. So a lot of these
there's
things
a lot of
true.
reality in there.
Yes.
In one sense or another, not necessarily that it was Dave, but I mean, just being in the DEA in and of itself as an undercover officer is rather. I don't know. There's probably not as quite as exciting jobs in the world as that. And he's incredibly humble. He's a humorous man. We've learned to very quickly fall in love with him, and that's it. So that's coming up next. Anybody who has any ideas for podcasts or interesting things that they got going on, we'd love to hear from you. You can check us out on Facebook, facebook.com. / 258 Studios, all spelled out. And Stacey, I don't know if Stacey has a handle where it's like facebook.com / like amazing woman, but whatever.
Stop it.
Oh, stop it. Oh, stop it, Bobby. And we forgot to mention in the podcast like where you can get Dave's books, but Dave is self-published. You'll hear why. But if you want, go on Facebook and look up David Hess, David Hess, author. And when you look that up, that'll bring you right to where you can get his books. And I do not think anybody would be disappointed. So without further ado, and did I forget anything?
Nope.
Are you sure?
Further.
There's a D.
Yep.
So without further ado, let's start the intro sequence. Welcome to the 25/8 Studios podcast. I am, what did I say last time? Graciously. I am honored to be sharing this room right now with Miss Stacey Toy.
Hello.
And the incomparable Mr. Dave Hess.
Yeah.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Dave is one of the few strange multi-hyphenates I've ever met, where you're a musician / DEA, former DEA agent / author / am I missing anything?
No, I'm just glad you told me what hyphenated mean because I wasn't sure.
It's a
what
multi-hyphenate.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's
I
like,
don't think you're missing anything.
Yeah, Snape wasn't just an educator; he was also a wizard. Sure. I don't know what the hell am I talking about. So, anyways, Dave came into my life probably about 2 months ago.
Just about. And
you just rolled through the door, and I'm like, "Who is this guy?"
I walked in here. I said, "There's a building here." I didn't know where I was.
I think I met you outside. I think you were outside in the loading dock, and I was like, "Can I help you?"
I was looking for
Chad.
Yeah.
And I saw you standing there. I said, "Can I help you?"
I was standing right next to him too, going, "You could take this one, Marky."
So, but that's how we met. Anyway.
Who's this transient? So, tell me a little bit about like where you grew up. Are you from here? Or
I am. I am from Carbondale.
Oh no,
I am from Carbondale.
I'm just kidding.
You should be. I'm from Carbondale.
Did you grow up in Carbondale?
I did grow up in Carbondale. I was born and raised in Carbondale until I went in the Army when I was 17. High school dropout. Very proud of that.
Get out of here! Really?
Really?
Well, what was Carbondale like in the late 20s?
The trolleys were great. Actually, when I grew up, Carbondale, and still is. I still think Carbondale's a nice town.
No, it is. Were you there for the UFO?
I was.
You were really there for the UFO?
I was not at the pond, but
was that 72?
Wasn't it 1972? And I know many people who I've heard a lot of stories. Some people say they saw it go out on the back of a pickup truck. Some people said it was a flatbed. Other people say they saw them pull a lantern out. So who knows? It's Carbondale.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
I know Elvis. If I was from some far off universe, I would plot my map to go to Carbondale. Say, hey, there's this place.
Yeah. We traveled light years. Where do you want to go?
Carbondale.
North of Scranton.
Yeah. They got a good place there, the Caruana. They got the best hot dogs. So what
was growing up in Carbondale like at that time?
It was fantastic. It was a great community. I wouldn't change my childhood for anything. It was just a great place to grow up. It was everything you needed. Movie theaters, dances, bands playing. It was a great place.
So did you get into music back then?
I did. And I never became a very good musician.
Oh, shut up. I hear lots of good things about you.
Well, not really.
The Reynolds boys seem to
I was
be a
okay
fan of yours.
Years ago. And I started playing when I was in 7th or 8th grade. And just probably the reason I ended up dropping out of high school because I was more interested in playing my guitar. And
what was school like back then? Because to me, it's now it's like
Well, we had those. There was that one room, and you had the 8 classes all.
Oh
in
shit!
There.
No,
one
really?
Schoolhouse. Yeah, it was really difficult. I went to St. Rose.
Okay.
For my first 8 years. And then after 8th grade, the nuns thought that I would do better up at the other place.
Is that heaven? Where is that?
It was heaven after leaving St. Rose.
Did you ever get your knuckles racked?
We don't want to go there.
Oh, really? Were they the tough nuns?
Yeah, they used to beat you when you wrote with your left hand because that was like the devil's.
Well, I never wrote with my left hand.
People who wrote with their left hand,
they
would slap them.
Like it, yeah.
Well, my mom went to St. Anne's.
Because the devil
is on the left shoulder, right?
Yeah. If you read my books, there's a section about the devil is on the left side. And
I remember that part.
And the angel was on the right side. And my poor character, he can't get them together.
So wait, so when you get out of there, what, like 13 years old after 8th grade, maybe 13, 14?
I actually went to summer school for English, which
what an irony.
Yeah,
yes.
I just wish they were all alive. so
you could
just
be like,
tell
ha
them,
ha.
I got a
yeah,
book.
you can read this, but there's dirty words in it. But no, after 8th grade, then I went to Benjamin Franklin with
that up there?
those other people. They used that
Was that public?
yeah, it's the old Carbondale area.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, Benjamin Franklin is now a senior citizens home, which is very nice. It's on Lincoln Avenue. But that was the high school. And then in 1971, I believe it became Carbondale area.
So at what point, like, were you like, I'm out of here? Like, was school just not your bag, or
I was really pretty good in grade school. And then, I don't know, things sort of got twisted, and then I wasn't good. And I was just, all my friends were going in the Army. They were all older than me. They were getting drafted and joined the military.
And this is like at the height of like Vietnam, wasn't
this
it?
is 1967, 68. So I quit school, much to my father's chagrin, and joined the Army when I was 17. But before that, I went down to Scranton Tech and lied my age and got a GED.
Really?
Yeah. And that's a funny story because 45 years later, it came back on me. Something with the government wanted to know how old I was. And when I told them, they said, no, you were. They kept trying to tell me I was 2 years older than I was. And then I realized that's where the government got it from. I had lied my age with the Board of Education.
Just to
get
go
the
to
GED.
Vietnam.
Well, not just to go to Vietnam, to go in the Army, but ended up in Vietnam, obviously, in 1968, 69.
Really? You went to?
Yeah. So,
Holy shit.
Yeah. So it was really strange, to the way everything turned
Yeah, but
out.
did you ever leave Carbondale before then?
No.
I mean, Northeast
I went to
PA.
Simpson one time. There was an ice cream place up there.
But that's a life altering experience to not even just to get out of Northeast PA, but
It's way too young. I was 17 when I went in the Army, and it's and they still allow that, I believe.
did you think you knew better?
Oh, I knew everything, man. Yeah. I would get these letters back from my friends in Vietnam saying, oh, this is really cool. Then a lot of them got killed. Well, this is not cool.
Oh my God,
But,
really?
Yeah. Well, that's what happens in war. People die.
I don't mean to laugh at that. It just seems like such an obvious answer to such a stupid question.
It really
that I
is.
asked.
But anyway, then by the age of 18, I was in Vietnam.
And was that like where were you stationed at?
I was in a town in an area called Phan Thiet, which is right on the South China Sea, in South Vietnam, further down, not quite to the Delta. And I was with the 1st and 50th Infantry.
And what was that like? I mean, Jesus, the climate's even different. I mean, you're in a war zone, but at least
It's
Yeah, the
not
weather was-
Carbondale anymore.
Yeah. Actually, Phan Thiet looked a little bit like Carbondale.
Probably like now, I'm sure.
Yeah.
what was that Robert Duvall line from Charlie Don't Know How to Surf? You never saw Apocalypse Now?
I did, but that was a long time ago.
Well, it was the late
I forgot what
70s.
you just said 10 minutes ago.
I said hello, Dave. Nice for you to be
There
here.
you go. Right?
So how many years were you in Vietnam?
13 months.
I mean, did it seem like 10 years or?
Yeah, it does when you're there. When
You're the first vet that I've had on that I've talked to, and I just
I can say anything then, right?
yeah,
Go
you could,
ahead.
yeah, you could,
I can make stuff
no, you
up.
could be like, I won the war.
Yeah,
Yes.
I got 4 silver stars.
Burn the bra.
Say anything,
Remember?
Yeah. It was an experience and one I certainly don't regret. And had I not gone there, I wouldn't have had any materials for books. So I guess it was a good thing that I went over there.
Have you been back after that? That's one place I really want to go and visit, but I want to go with vets, and I know they take trips there.
Ironically enough, the town Phan Thiet, I said, is on the South China Sea, and it's now a resort area.
Wow.
And when I
At the time, was it?
that was a fun place. But to jump ahead a little bit, I went to work in Afghanistan for 2 years in 2010, and you get 30 days a year off, and I was going to go back to Vietnam, and I started looking up Phan Thiet, and like a 5-star hotel on the beach with your own swimming pool, all meals included. It was $65 a week.
What?
A day.
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
A lot
day.
of people from Europe go to Vietnam on holiday. Like it's one
Yep.
of their top destinations.
Yeah, it's
How strange.
if you pull up Fantiette and look at the resorts, and the beaches are just as white as can be.
Really?
Yeah. Now the only problem with Fantiette is it's the world's capital of Nookmom.
What the hell is that?
Nookmom is a fish sauce that they make, and you put it on pork chops. They make all kinds of meals with it.
Is it terrible?
Is it fermented or something?
It is fermented,
Yes.
and they have now. By now, again, this is 125 years ago. I was there, but
You look great.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I didn't know we had Father Time here.
But in the town, there were piles of fish, all kinds of nasty fish. Like you really wouldn't eat them, like sort of like perch,
Right.
and it would be piles of them 15, 20 feet high of these rotted fish just sitting in the sun. And they would come out and they would shovel them into a wheelbarrow and they would wheel them into a plant and mix tomatoes or onions or whatever it is they put in there. And they would make a sauce out of it. And actually, it's not bad. You can buy it in Asian stores around here in Nookmom. And unfortunately, all that odor from the fermenting fish, when the winds blew, would all whipped over to our camp. Our
You're just like, what?
and after, it's sort of like living around a paper mill. If you've ever experienced a
stinks.
paper mill,
Yeah.
after a while you don't smell it.
Well, I equate that to the dentist office. When you walk in and you have that smell of like Novocaine, and then you're like, oh, I hate
And
I don't-
fluoride.
Yeah, I don't want to be here. And then 5 minutes later, you're like, I don't smell it anymore. That's the closest I've come to war, Dave.
Damn.
Kids these days.
Yes.
Damn kids.
A checkup.
Maybe you'll get lucky and we'll get a good one going.
Oh my
can you
God.
imagine? Can you imagine me in a
No.
No.
But they
a
do
resounding?
They do hire camera operators because I mean those were the people in the front
Hey.
lines when they liberated Auschwitz and everything like that.
You know full well that like I'm afraid of. There's a lot of fears in me, but as long as I'm
He's
looking
afraid
through,
to go down the street sometimes.
as long as there's a camera in front of me, like that fear kind of goes away for some strange reason.
Isn't
I
that
prob-
backwards? Aren't you supposed to be
No,
afraid of cameras?
No, I love
Because right now I'm terrified.
why? Because that camera's on.
That's a camera?
Yeah. It looks like a certs pack.
Yes.
Yes.
So how long? So how many? So you did what? What'd you say? 13 months.
Yeah.
13 months, and then you get out of there, and then what? I mean, do they like? I don't know how this works. So they, do they go like, all right, see ya?
Well, if your time is expired, that didn't come out right. If
your time
if your
is-
enlistment has expired,
There we go.
you get out. And in my case, I extended an extra month because if you came back from Vietnam with less than 180 days, they let you go. So I extended an extra month to get out. But if you still had time on your enlistment, you came back and.
I mean, is that, and I don't want to like, you don't have to go into this. I'm just a naturally curious person, and I think everything's like not off topic. Is it weird?
Don't say
Stop!
it.
Stop giving her looks. Stop!
I'm winking at him back, so it's okay.
Why are you winking at me?
Not you, him. He's looking at me, and I'm just like giving him the "it's gonna be okay" wink.
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah. Now, do you pee sitting down?
Yes.
What? I mean, that's gotta be like
Plus for you.
that's got to be like a crazy situation to be in for over a year of your life. Like, so when you come back, like we talked today, and I don't want to get political, but what I want to talk about is that like some people experience like those things never leave.
Yeah.
You know, that experience really stays with you. Like, how was it for you? And I hate to say like reacclimate back into society, because I don't. Maybe I'm speaking at a turn here, but it seems to me like that the military doesn't prepare you to get back into society.
Well, no, they don't. Any more than anybody prepares you to be married. You know.
Fair enough.
Good analogy.
Well,
Or to have kids.
one pre-Cana class, and they're like, "Hey, go ahead."
I walked right out of that one. Halfway through,
We tried to go through the drive-through in that one. It's like,
But when
easiest
you
one.
came back, it's like, all right,
Well,
get a job. Like
it's
what?
interesting when we came back. I came back in 1970, and again I came back to Carbondale, and at that time there were probably 20 of us who got back within a year.
Right.
the same guys I went to high school with, all my friends.
Right.
And we all hung out at the bar and we drank heavily. And, we rode around the block in Carbondale 500 times a night thinking we're going to pick up some girl.
chicks.
Yeah. Well, stay away from him. He's crazy. He's confused.
Yeah.
He's nuts.
That's the 7th time he's driven around here.
7th.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7th time that hour.
Did you have any protesters when you came home? Because I know that was that bigger, like in New York City, or because Vietnam people protested when the soldiers
there was
came
a bad
home.
rap for soldiers coming home.
They
then.
did. You know what, though? And I can't speak for everyone, obviously. But my experiences, I didn't. Number one, I think a lot of that is, and I hope no Vietnam veterans don't get mad at me, but I think a lot of it is overblown. Number one, when you fly in back, you don't fly into a commercial airport. You fly into, in my case, I flew into McChord Air Force Base in Seattle, and you fly into air bases. And I am sure some were confronted by protesters. That was not my experience. Came back to Carbondale. I say my friends were back. We drank for a couple of years, and ironically, no, we did. And ironically enough, while we were doing it was a good thing, because what we would do is we'd go to the bar and we would discuss what happened.
Oh, so it's almost like therapy.
Well, we were doing group sessions and we didn't,
not realizing it.
Didn't even realize it. So we were really helping ourselves and having fun.
Right.
But, we had no idea that what we were doing, but, sitting down, talking to people, because you couldn't talk about your parents, your parents about, well, yeah, I don't want to hear that.
Right.
That's not necessary to tell me that.
Well, because because your parents would be the generation in between the greatest generation, wouldn't they?
No, they were
They were the greatest generation.
They were the greatest generation.
Because both my grandparents were in World War II. One of them was one of them was a pilot, my mom's dad, and then my other one was like an engineer. So he would, like, in the South Pacific, like under MacArthur, like he would go down there and like build the airstrips and stuff like that. And if you tried to talk to them about what World War II was like, they didn't want to talk about it.
No,
my grandfather told me one story once, and it was funny as hell. But
yeah, funny stories are good ones. But most Vietnam vets, most veterans in general, they're not going to, and the ones I find that really open up and they start telling you war stories and, this is what happened to me. And I find most of that is nonsense.
Right.
The ones that you'll tell the stories to are the ones you trust.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to tell some mutt that you met at a bar.
Well, I think
something that you actually, a bad thing that happened.
Yeah. And I don't want to degrade myself here, but it's going to happen. Is that, like, we almost, I mean, I don't have the courage or the tenacity to put myself in a situation like that, because I think at the end of the day, I'm a huge lady.
Well, I'm scared too. My husband was in the Navy for 5 years, and he was on the aircraft carriers and told me some crazy stories from Bahrain and when he was all over the place. And I am way too chicken shit to do any of that. And no thanks. You can do it.
Yeah, but the point I'm getting at is I think that when you the people who didn't experience it almost look at it like it's like a sideshow. Like, tell me the terrible stuff that happened instead of like the camaraderie. Like, I'm sure you made lifelong friends. Or maybe not.
Couple.
Maybe you hated everyone. I don't know.
Yeah, I still do. Pretty much. The question that always got me, and I talk about this in some of my books, and particularly this most recent one, Damage. And you'd get back, and you go into a bar, or you'd meet somebody. Oh, you just got back from Vietnam, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think the first thing they ask you?
Did you kill anybody?
Did you kill anybody?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've killed 20. First thing they ask is, did you kill anybody?
That seems so effed up, though, doesn't it?
It does, but I am guilty of doing that when I was a waitress, because I love to hear the stories, but that was like the first thing I thought about.
It's probably the one question you shouldn't ask is the first question you ask.
It's true. It's true. And I apologize for it, but I was really curious, and I just should have approached it better.
Well,
I've learned.
You need to buy my book.
I'm reading it now.
No, the new one. The new one is a short story.
All right, so So
about
there's a 4 or 5 year therapy session at the local watering hole,
bar. Yeah.
and then
Well, I end up, ironically, everything that's happened in my life has sort of been like a ladder.
right,
If anything is missing that doesn't happen in my life, then nothing happens.
for instance,
Okay. For instance, my mother died when I'm young. Okay. If she doesn't die, there's no way in the world I would ever have been in the Army. You know, she'd have made sure I stayed in high school, you know, blah, blah, blah.
right,
So I end up going in the Army. My dad meets another woman and gets married again. She has a stepdaughter or a daughter who becomes my stepsister.
right,
She had a job, like I'm back from Vietnam. She introduces me to this gal that she works with at Sears.
Sears Roebuck.
I end up marrying her.
Get the hell out of here.
So now I'm married to this gal. And I have no job. You know, I'm working, I think at the time I was working at ICS.
But she wasn't giving you shit like, you got to get a job.
Yeah, I was doing some crazy working in a factory
If you're
thing.
going to love me, you're going to do this.
So she said, we don't have enough money to live. She said, well, doesn't the GI Bill, or can't you go to school and get money? I said, well, I didn't graduate from high school. I just have a GED. Long story short, I go up to Penn State. They admit me.
No shit.
They had what they called an adjunct program. If you did 2 terms, there were terms at the time, and maintained a C average, you became a student. So I did. So I was going to quit because I had, I stayed my term.
Right.
I got my $175, $370 a month, whatever it was. And there was a teacher up there, Paul Perone. In fact, he's still there. He's the head of the English department. He said, Dave, don't quit. Hang around. So I hang around. So
now, what year is this? Like 76?
75,
75? Okay.
So I end up going to University of Scranton. And while I'm there, I get a work study job in the veterans office, like filling paper out for guys coming in.
Right.
So I graduate from there. I get a job at Lackawanna College.
Now, what were you going for at the U?
English.
English.
'Cause
Okay.
I knew I did well in summer school, so I thought I'd give it another shot.
Nice.
So you gave a summer school, which is what, 1 hour a day for like
Damn
3
right.
weeks?
You think that was easy? So I have this experience now
Right.
as a working in the veterans. So Lackawanna College at the time had about 700 veterans going there.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was packed with veterans, and they were looking for a veterans coordinator. So I got the job because I was doing it at the university. So I
Right.
graduate, I get the job there. Well, we used to have a veterans rep from the real VA come up from Philadelphia, who was a Vietnam veteran. He would check your paperwork, make sure you weren't ripping anybody off.
Right.
So he was a Vietnam vet. He had both legs blown off, and we got to be really good friends. So he used to stay at my house when he came up, and
Right.
so he called me one day. He said, "Hey, Dave," he said, "I have a friend of mine who works for the FBI, and he's going to be working up there for a couple months. Could he stay with you?" I'm thinking, oh, man, FBI guy. I don't know about
I don't know.
that.
That's Hoover, man.
I have stuff going on here. So anyway, he comes, he stays with me, nice guy. And he starts talking to me about, you ought to try to get in the FBI. And, I'm thinking, I don't think so.
Why do you want me in the FBI? Like,
So he convinces me to go take the test. So I take the test.
now do you have to go down to DC?
I had to go to Philadelphia. Took the test, failed it by a point. So he said, well, try it again. So I tried it again, failed it by 2 points. He goes, he said, you ought to try DEA.
Wait, really?
Just going through all of the.
Now, I'm being
the
truthful
acronyms.
with you.
Yeah, after that was, if you fail DAA, it's
I'm
CIA.
I'm being very
NSA.
truthful with you.
FBLA.
I had zero idea, knowledge, who the hell DEA was. Clueless.
So you went, what's DIA?
Pretty much. So I go to the library and I look
But you
up.
didn't. So you didn't even ask when he says you should try
I'm
DEA.
like, yeah, okay, I'll go find I'm DEA, get the book. What the hell is that? Oh, okay, I can do that. I know a lot of drug guys. So I go down. Now, the FBI, when you go in for their interview, it's very formal, and they've got number 1 pencils, and they've got their ties on.
Is that like the whole flat foot mentality? Yeah.
They're bad news.
Yeah.
So, and I'll tell you why I didn't get in the FBI in a minute, I think. Anyway, I think I figured it out. So I get down to the interview for DEA. And it's a big building on Art Street, 12 floors, 15 floors. I go in, sitting there waiting. I go in, and there's 3 agents sitting there to interview me. No test. I'm thinking,
Great.
this is great. No test. I'm in. So they're sitting there. I'm sitting there, and one guy looks at me. He said, "So you want to be an agent, huh?" I said, "Yeah." "Why?" "Well, I need a career." "All right." The guy looks at me. He says, "You ever smoke marijuana?" "No." He said, "You're in Vietnam. You didn't smoke marijuana?" "No." The other guy goes, "Do you drink?" "Oh, I drink a lot." So they all looked at each other and they went, "What do you think? Okay?" Yeah, he's good.
Oh my gosh.
Now, are you paraphrasing, or is that basically?
This is almost verbatim. Yeah, he's all right. Yeah, okay, we'll call you. I'm thinking, yeah, you're going to call me, right? It took a year. A year later, I walked in.
Well, what'd you do for that interim? What'd you do in that
I was
year where you're
working
like, what
for
the
a
fuck am I going to do?
Well, I was working for a Veterans Outreach Center, going around trying to find people jobs and stuff. Yeah, that didn't work.
That's honorable stuff to do, though. Come on.
It was awful.
Okay.
It was terrible. I couldn't find anybody. I couldn't find. If I could, I would have taken a job myself. So anyway, they called me up and they said, "We'd like to hire you as an agent."
I mean, was that out of the blue, or was it?
In fact, I was sitting in the bench in Wilkes-Barre that day because our office was in Wilkes-Barre at the Outreach Center, and I was thinking, "What am I going to do?" I was almost crying. This is the worst job. I never should have left Lackawanna. This is horrible.
Right.
This is horrible. So I got home that night and I'm sitting there having a cocktail and the phone rang. And they said, "We'd like to hire you."
Just like, is this Dave Hess?
That was it. And I was like, "Oh, yeah." They said, "Can you be here in a month?" I said, "Yes, I can."
So
I
where
can
did
be there right now, in fact.
so where did they want you to go?
So then I went off to training.
And where's that at?
Now it's at Quantico. We have our own academy at Quantico. But at that time, it was at the Federal Law Enforcement Center in Glencoe, Georgia, which is where they train everyone except the FBI and DEA pretty much.
Currently.
Forever.
Yeah, but you said they trained everybody
At
but
that
the
ti-
FBI.
FBI and DEA trains at Quantico.
Okay.
And everybody else goes to Glencoe.
So you go down to Glencoe.
Spend my time there. And
Now, you never wanted to be, or you didn't aspire to be.
no, I really didn't.
So what was that like? What was that like? Like the training process for you?
Well, it's very, DEA is very paramilitary, their training. So
Right.
it was sort of like the military all over, except I was, 15, 16, 17 years older. And I was trying to do all these things that I was doing when I was 18. And it was difficult, very difficult training.
Is there ever a moment in there where you're like, I'm not doing this?
Yeah.
Like that's those self-doubt moments.
Yeah,
where you're
you
like,
do. You get that. And then you think, well, I'm going to go back to being in Veterans Outreach and making $13,000
So you imagine yourself sitting in that bench and just being like, I'm not doing that again.
No. So it really,
I'll suffer through this.
yeah, I did. And I'm glad I did because it was a great career.
So how long was that training?
Training at that time was only 12 weeks. Now it's 16 or 18. Yeah, it's very long training.
Do you get like a diploma?
Yeah, I got a big.
Are you like a
diploma.
certificate or just
It's
like?
big diploma, and deputy attorney general comes down and gives it to you. And
Now
speakers.
you're still the woman that you met all the way back when and got married. Is she still your wife today?
I don't know. No,
So, anyways, the woman who you were with at the time, was she like, I'm
No,
proud of you
I wasn't with anyone.
at
I was
that
divorced
time?
at that time.
Oh, you were divorced? So did you
and
look
I
at
was
yourself in the
dating
mirror?
my current wife.
Now, was she proud?
Oh, so proud.
All right,
She
so
didn't know what it was either.
But so what happens when you get your diploma? Are they like,
Well,
all right, so here you go, and you need to report to?
They say, well, you go back to Philadelphia where you got hired, and then in a month you'll report to your duty station. And mine happened to be Albuquerque.
NM.
NM.
Yeah,
Yes, Albuquerque NM. So I went there for 9 years.
Now, what was that like?
It was fun.
It was. There's
was
not a
fun.
lot of people who have a job and go, that was a fun job.
It was fun. It was the job that you used to sit at your desk or in the car and go, I cannot believe they're paying me to do this. This is really cool.
But what was the things that they were like there's certain people who have like, all right, you're X drug division, or you do this, like,
Yep.
Is there a certain skill set that they put you into, or was it just like this general?
DEA expects you to do everything.
Oh, every drug.
You do undercover, you do money laundering, conspiracies. You work on absolutely everything. Now, there's a division of diversion investigators who only work on pharmaceuticals and chemicals coming into the country. That's all they do. They don't have arrest powers. If they do want to arrest someone, they have to get an agent to go with them and arrest them. They don't carry guns, and then they have the
So they're more like
intel.
investigators.
They're investigators.
Yeah.
Special agents. They expect you to do everything. And personally, I think that was maybe not the best. That's the only thing I saw about the FBI that was better than DEA. They trained you specifically. Okay, you're going to be an undercover agent.
Right.
You're going to work money laundering. You're going to work conspiracy cases. You're going to work terrorism. Whereas DEA, it was just like, hey, we got a narco terrorist operating. You're on it.
I mean, was that hard for you at the beginning because that's different
Oh.
skill sets in your head? Like, you have to have a whole new mentality just to
Well, what's really
based
difficult
on each thing.
is when you go on. In such my case, I had no law enforcement background, and a lot of the people that were going through with me in my class,
Did
a lot of them were former cops.
right.
So they were so far ahead of me as what to do and how to act and how to deal with people and how to talk to people. I was there with my goofy little tie. I going, excuse me, sir, I'm an agent here.
And they're like, no, you don't do that.
There's no way you're an agent. Yes, I am. Don't tell me I'm not, because I got this diploma.
that I carry in my backpack.
But they do, they would always try to hook you up with a senior partner that would guide you. And it takes a good 3-4 years for an agent to really be on his own and kind of know what he's doing without getting sued.
So what was your, and if you could, I mean, I'm sure there's stuff you can't talk about, but what are some of the things that like your primary focus was on in Albuquerque?
Methamphetamine labs.
Now, is this the early 80s?
This is 84.
And methamphetamine was...
Yeah, methamphetamine. And it's funny because back then, all the old guys that were there when I arrived, they were all working cocaine and heroin, and then there was a couple of us were working specifically methamphetamine laboratories, and the old guys would look at you and go, yeah, he's working kitty dope,
Yeah, but kitty dope is now scarier than...
Now, I wish I was on there now, because now I'd be like a superhero. But back then they called it kitty dope. Yeah, he's working kitty dope. Yeah, he's out there tonight. He's chasing some biker around,
But how big of a problem was that back then? I know, like...
In the Southwest, it was a big problem.
I mean, but why was it such a big problem down there? Because it was easy, or because it was...
Well, the history of methamphetamine goes way back, but
I know they were giving it to the soldiers in World War II, the German
II.
soldiers, yeah.
And they gave it to us in Vietnam, except they gave us the little pink pill.
But what were they? What were they, like, pep pills? They're
to keep you awake. Yeah, if you were going out on
The
ambush all
amphetamine
night.
salts?
It was an amphetamine.
Yeah.
They would give that to you to stay awake while you're on ambush. But in the Southwest, you have a lot of biker gangs. You got the Banditos. There's a whole lot of biker gangs running around because the weather's, good for bikers.
Yeah, it works for sleeveless jackets.
Yes. Very good. That's true. And
Coming from a
so
guy who
it
worked on
became-
Sons of Anarchy,
There you go.
sleeveless
There
jackets
you
is a
go.
big deal.
See? Yeah, there you go.
The one percenters.
The one
Yes,
percenters.
one percenters.
and They would, the Banditos, of course, were really into it. And
Now, biker gangs are fascinating, like their infrastructure and how. Because
Yeah.
I remember when I was working on Sons of Anarchy, there was a document that went around for you didn't have to read it, but they encourage you to read it, like what all the slang is, like what it stands for, like your Black Wings, your Red Wings, your.
don't want those red.
You don't want
wings.
any of those. Nobody wants those. But I didn't realize like how structured of an organization they would be.
I worked on bikers for quite a few years, and it always amazed me how, everything was the mafia back then, and this, and the outlaw bikers were kind of ignored, and they were just running wild, making.
Is it because
millions.
it wasn't like sexy? It wasn't like because the Godfather sort of glorifies that life, and
Yeah, and it was difficult to work them. It was difficult to work undercover on them.
the biker stuff.
Yeah, it was hard to get into them. So you'd have to work on the labs and hope that somebody that you'd catch cooking meth would say, "Well, I'm getting my chemicals from so and so who's a bandito or, an outlaw bike or something."
And they were suspect to anybody new that came in.
Oh, you couldn't get into them. Now, ATF did get into some of them, and the FBI did years ago, got into the Hells Angels. That's all documented in books.
But that's all like around the time of what was that, Altamont with the Stones?
I was going to bring that up with the Rolling
Yeah.
Stones.
Yeah, when they killed the guy.
Well, when you hire the Hells Angels to be your security.
Yeah, that's not a lot of common sense right there.
Well, Mick and Keith, I don't know if they were thinking right at that time. I also don't know if they were the promoters at that time. I forget who the promoter was that maybe did that.
I don't know who that was. I don't know who promoted that concert, but oops.
But everybody knew about the Hells Angels, like especially in our generation. It's about the Rolling Stones and the Hells Angels. Like that's, if you don't know them any other way, you know them that way.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they had a bad. I mean, they've look. They're a biker gang. But I told you the story about the rap party that we had for Sons of Anarchy when the Hells Angels guys came up to me, and I've never met a Hells Angels guy in my life. Like I've never met anybody from a motorcycle club. But these guys walked in, like we're all in suits and stuff. These guys walk in wearing their jackets. And after about an hour, they pull me aside and they're like, "Hey man, like we got to tell you, like you guys party harder than we do." And I'm like,
Yeah, because you guys are really old.
"Yeah." And I'm like, well,
Well,
there's a lot of sadness in the entertainment industry, so like we just kind of go big or go home.
I had a really funny Hells Angel story.
Let's go.
When I was a young agent, there was another young agent, and we were riding around, not knowing what we were doing, just riding around. And there was this old hotel that had been closed for years. And at one time, it was the place to stay in Albuquerque. I can't remember the name of it, but it had a big awning over it, And as it was pouring rain out, and as we're riding up the street, we see all these Hells Angels. It's like 30 of them, 20 or 30 of them. They're sitting under this canopy. So
They're coming to us. We don't have to do our job.
I said, let's follow them and see what they're doing. I don't know what we thought we were going to do after we followed them. So we followed them for 50, 90 miles out to Tucumcari.
Holy shit.
And we're following them, and
They had to have known.
so we called ahead and we got the state police, So we want to ID these guys. Want to know who they are, where they're going. So, now you got to realize, between the two of us, we've got about 18 months experience. So we get up to Tucumcari, New Mexico, and they've got the road blocked.
The state police
State
does.
police and the sheriff. So we pull up behind them, and trooper comes down to us and said, "What's going on, guys?" We go, "Well, I've got this diploma here from DEA, and we like to identify these guys and know where they're going and talking to." So and it was amazing because they all had their leathers on,
Right.
and say, "I want to see your driver's license, sir." And to get to their driver's license, they just, they have to just about get undressed, right?
Right.
So they were very nice. They were very polite. They know how to play the game, and they were very nice.
Yeah, but at the same time, 30 Hells Angels together riding looks a little suspicious.
Yeah, well, they were going on a run.
Right.
So
Did they,
They
have, a
would
van?
say,
Did
like-
they have a van in the back?
Yes, they did. And
I
they
know that
said,
from the show.
the
Yeah.
crash band.
Yep.
And he said, he'd go to first. He'd go, my name is, Billy Williams, and don't make me get my wallet out. My California driver's license is 876. I mean, they had been stopped so many times. They knew this stuff.
Right.
Sorry, sir, but you have to give us your license. Now we're pissing them off. So we're there for a good hour and a half, right?
Oh,
So
no.
We're doing all this. We get them all identified. Okay.
No warrants.
So
No.
the trooper goes, well, what do you want to do with them? He thought we were going to arrest him or something. Well, we're going back to Albuquerque. So now we got the sheriff mad. We got the angels mad. We got everybody mad.
Wait, you pissed off both sides of the law in one stop.
Everybody's mad.
Congratulations, Dave Hess.
Yes, sir. So now, the funny part, we didn't get to the funny part yet. Now we're riding down the road, back down I-40 towards Albuquerque. And the other new guy, who shall remain nameless, he's driving. All of a sudden he's going, oh, shit. Well, he had his badge hooked on his belt. And one of those guys got it.
One of the Hell's Angels stole his badge.
Took his badge.
That's amazing.
What was more amazing was telling the boss, Kevin lost his badge. I still have mine and my diploma.
So what? I mean, how you were there? What, 9 years?
Yeah,
Down in Albuquerque?
Yeah.
I mean, so after 3 or 4 years of like getting your
Doing all that.
not being green anymore.
Then you start working conspiracy cases and larger cases, but I worked on the banditos for years.
Now, if you could say that like my one biggest accomplishment in Albuquerque would be that Kevin lost his badge.
Actually, Kevin lost his badge, his radio, and his gun in 1 week.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Fire Kevin.
Yeah. So I was looking.
Oh yeah. By the way, Kevin now is the head of the DEA.
Probably.
I was looking really
It's probably
good.
something like Martin Short would play in a movie. I can just picture in my head.
Well, he lost his gun. He had a Camaro. You know how the hoods sort of go up on him?
Yeah.
Well, he was taking his garbage out before he went to work, and he set his gun on the hood,
Oh my
Did he drive away?
and he drove away.
People do that with coffee, not guns.
Well, I can't laugh because I did the same thing.
Just
Except
blended right in with
Except
that.
I threw
T-Road.
mine in the garbage.
So where do you go after what year do you leave Albuquerque? And how does that happen?
92. I put in. I was
For a
going to go
transfer?
to Belize, and at the
To live
last
with the
minute they
half-naked women?
called. Yes.
Yeah.
Belize was very nice. I've been
But
there.
at the time, it wasn't. It was a third world. It's so bad. They actually sent some from headquarters out to talk to me and say, "Do you know where you're going?"
The land of the botfly.
Yeah, so
That's like my big. Go
What
ahead.
the hell is that? A
So-
robot fly? I don't know.
No,
what
but
that is.
look it up.
Big
It's so
bot.
gross. It's just that's the only thing I'm afraid of in this whole world is a
don't be
botfly.
Is it a bot fly?
Yes. It like lays its eggs inside of you and like stays in there, and you have to put like Vaseline over the top of it and pull it out. And it's
Dave, why did you want to go there? To the
don't-
bot fly.
because I like bot flies.
no one likes botflies.
In DEA, if you can get into the international mode, you can usually get some pretty nice places because we have more than, except for the State Department, DEA has more offices overseas than any other agency.
Really?
Yeah.
So
anyway,
you wanted to get out of Albuquerque?
Yeah, and it was there. It was time to go. And then about a week or two before I was supposed to leave, I got a call from headquarters saying, we see that you also put in for training at Quantico. Would you like to come back here instead of Belize? And my father was still alive. Her mom was still alive in Pennsylvania. So I went back to Quantico as an instructor for 5 years. And that worked out because they actually both died while we were there within the next 5 years. So we got to spend a lot of time with them.
Well, that's terrible. But on a good note,
No,
you had
it was
the
good.
experience
Yeah,
to
and-
go there and be an instructor.
Yeah, and that was pretty cool. I would that was a fun time. That was a nice duty.
Well, you're
station.
shaping, because I'm sure it wasn't the typical
Would
when
you want me
walk
to shape
into-
your son's mind for you?
But that's what I'm saying. It's like you were in the shit.
Yeah, well, that's what
And
they
that-
put
and-
the
and
senior guys in.
Yeah, and experience is the thing that lets you have better agents, I'm assuming.
You stay there 5 years and then you leave. So now the FBI, for the most part, and that's again, they put the instructors there. That's it. They're there. And they continually send them off to more training to become better instructors. They send them to get their masters, and
But they're not in the field.
but they're not in the field.
Right.
Whereas we send guys who've just come out of the field after 10 years, whatever, and have experience. And it's amazing how good the DEA instructors are. And you get guys in there who can't even read, all of a sudden they're super instructors. I mean, it just amazes me.
But that goes to like you. Do you think that you were a good student in school
No.
when you were younger?
No.
Right. But
Maybe
you ended
in grade school.
But you ended up, basically, and not basically, but instructing.
Yeah. I became, I think, a very good instructor.
But isn't that interesting that you didn't do well in school and then you really flourished?
It's
When
called,
you have a passion for something, or when
Yeah.
you like what
I mean,
you do.
were you passionate about it?
about what?
Being an agent in the DEA?
Yeah, I think at first I wasn't. I was like, oh, Jesus.
Well, I'm not saying like
But it
passionate,
grows
like,
on you.
like Kubrick would be making a movie. I mean,
it grows on you, and all of a sudden you realize that you really know what you're doing. There's something
there's
about
some weird validation. to
there's
that.
something weird about because knowing what you're doing.
Right.
Like right now, you're sitting here going, "What the fuck am I doing?"
Me?
Right? Yeah.
Oh, I that's every moment.
Yeah,
of
that's like every
day.
30 seconds.
But-
Tune
Yeah.
it out anymore.
Yeah.
But no, it's
I'm halfway through a sandwich, not knowing where
see,
I'm going.
there you go.
Yeah.
But once I don't know, it's very few experiences I've had other than being a DEA agent and instructor where I really felt in control, and I liked that. It was cool.
Now, how do you? So after the 5 years, then what? You
Then I
went to
went-
Portland, right?
No, I went to Denver,
Oh,
which
The
is-
Mile High City.
the Mile High City, which was
because you
I
wanted to have
hated.
difficulty breathing.
Yeah, and because no, I didn't like Denver. I didn't like what I was doing. I was in charge of training, and I was tired of training at that point. And I had really bad bosses.
I mean, are you more of like an in the field
Yeah.
guy rather
Yeah.
than like in an office guy?
Yeah, I don't play well with bosses at all. I'm bad.
Are you? I mean, are you like the guy who will constantly like butt heads with the superiors because?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
But you weren't doing that just to do it. You were doing it because you probably knew better,
Well,
or at least thought you did.
and I think a lot of that goes back to Vietnam, because I do have a problem with post-traumatic stress,
Right.
and I didn't realize that until recently. And I kept telling my wife, I
like
told you
15
I was
minutes ago on the podcast,
telling my
or-
wife I was crazy and you weren't paying attention. But I would go off like that with bosses. And the one guy really didn't like me and I didn't like him. And it was a long 5 years. And when he left, I got promoted and went to Seattle, where I was happy.
And what did you do in Seattle?
I was in charge of a mobile enforcement team, which they're starting up again, which I think was the best thing DEA ever had. We would do, we'd get a call, say, from a town like Carbondale,
Right.
and they'd say, hey, we got a major drug problem here, and we've got 10 cops. We
can't handle
We don't
this.
know what to do.
Right.
So we would gather up some informants, and we'd take 10 agents out there, and we'd get 3 or 4 of their cops to work with us. And we would, like if we were saying Carbondale, we'd get a hotel
Outside of town.
in Scranton,
Right.
and then we'd work that area. And
And
we'd work it and work it.
But do you give yourself like a time limit? Like we have 3 months to
usually
break this?
3
or-
months, 5 months. And if something's still going, you keep it going. And then it wouldn't make any arrest at all until the very end. And then you would go in.
Well, because
and
you're building your case,
clean
right?
everybody up.
Now who, like, I know like in Lackawanna County, like you have detectives that, try to make the case, or police officers, but then who is the one who would in essence be like, the attorney or whoever presents the evidence, and Would that be the AG's office?
Well, it would depend how big the case was. If you had a lot of small dealers, you'd usually have a U.S. attorney and a district attorney, and the district attorney would take the small cases, and then when you got the main guy, you would take him, and the U.S. attorney would prosecute him.
What is? I mean, how successful were you with those mobile units?
They were very successful. Now, what we learned towards the end, and right before they did away with the program, was in.
Are these the Clinton years now?
And more Bush years, but the Met team started in the.
So you went from Clinton to HW?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was there when Bush was. I left in 04.
Oh, so you were there for like 9/11, and then.
Yeah. But we learned with that Met team, what they call it, the Met Mobile Enforcement Team, was the first several years they had it, they would go in and they would, they'd make 100 arrests. Well, then somebody said, this is like a turd. The flies come on there, you chase them.
But the turd's still there.
And then they come back.
Right.
So what we had to start doing, we came up with is like before you would get ready to do the arrest, you would go and maybe talk to the church, social workers, and say, here's what's going to happen. You need to set up midnight basketball. You need to set up programs for after school for these kids to come to. You need to set up police programs. So when you did make all the arrests, they come back, but you had a support.
There's something proactive
right,
for them to do. Right.
Rather than so it was.
I mean, was that also for like I'm assuming some of them are parents that you would arrest like that.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
for their kids too.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're just like, Daddy's leaving and he did this, but we enforced it. You're on your own.
Right. You're right. Exactly.
So you were. It's a very liberal idea, Dave.
It wasn't my idea. No, somebody much smarter than me came up with that idea. But,
It just seems like a very kind thing to do. Where you're like,
actually,
look,
we are very kind people. This is what people don't understand.
You
about
in general, or the DEA?
No, the DEA. People, they think, they call us cowboys, Nazis. But in effect, it's who else is out there trying to stop some dope from selling your kid heroin?
Right.
You're out there doing a good thing, and talk about Vietnam's being disrespected. I mean, oh, he's a narc. He's this. It's a very derogatory. I mean, you don't get invited to a lot of parties. Let me tell you. When you are a DEA agent, you don't go to a lot of parties that the neighbors are throwing. But we do good things. DEA does really good things, and.
But they make sure that the community does. It seems to me like what you just said. Make sure that the community doesn't, it doesn't remain broken.
Well, that's what we try for, and hopefully that's what they're still doing. Probably more now than ever.
I think that's really honorable.
It's, and I've had guys get out of jail, and I've bumped into them on the street. Now, one was actually cooking my eggs.
Wait, no.
And he came out and he goes, "Hey, remember me?" I was like, "Oh." Scratch those eggs. Give me a box of cereal. Leave the box. But I've actually had a couple of them come up to me and say, "You know what? If you didn't arrest me, my life would be a mess."
Oh, they actually thanked you.
Thank you. I was like,
I mean, is that a surprise to you that they would do that?
Yeah. But and I think about it, yeah, it's.
Did the culture change after 9/11? Because I remember, and this is just me coming from like an idiot's point of view, but I remember like a lot of the times it's like, the drug traffickers, they're going to be bringing in, weapons of mass destruction, and there's going to be plutonium with the cocaine, and did your job change after that about being like more vigilant, or was it like, look, we're doing our job?
DEA may have changed a little bit. But what we did see was how many people came into the office wanting to apply.
Really?
Yeah, everybody got real patriotic. It's like tying that yellow
Yes.
ribbon around a tree, and then you go, fuck this. 6 months later, ribbons laying, it's all faded.
No, it's true. Everybody was donating blood. Everybody was like wanting to be a firefighter and everything. It was like an awesome moment because like literally the whole world stopped. It was an incredible
But
moment.
then like
And
6
everybody
weeks
got
later,
real-
they're like,
Yeah, well, that's with everything, and now it's just less time. But that was one point in time where we actually all came together as a world.
My
I
ski
think.
instructor came in. The guy taught
you're
me. how to
shitting me.
He came in. He wanted to be a DEA agent.
Did you look at him and like, no?
Not that kind of powder.
And I'm like, okay. So he seemed like a nice guy, right? So, in fact, his father was a federal agent for an agency. So this guy comes in, big, good-looking guy, and I think, oh, this guy, good agent, right? So he fills all. I mean, he goes through the whole process, which is, it's a nightmare. I mean, just the process. When I went in, it was easy. Now, they didn't.
Well, according
polygraph-
to your interview, it sounded really easy.
they didn't polygraph you back then. When I
Oh,
went in.
really?
No, they didn't do anything like that. Say, hey, he's good.
Bob, you like him?
Yeah,
I like
and
him.
that
Steve.
was it.
He's in.
Yeah, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
So
He doesn't seem too stuffy. He's wearing a Grateful Dead shirt. Let's bring him in.
you must know something about it. So this guy comes in, he uses me as a reference, right? So I'm not going to interview him because my name is on the sheet. So he comes in about 6 months later for the interview, and I can hear the other agents in there kind of laughing, right? Going, oh, this is either really good or really bad, right?
Right.
So he wasn't in there long. So he came out and sitting at my desk, and one came over and said, did you really recommend him? I said, yeah. I go, why? He goes, well, we asked him if he ever smoked marijuana, and he said, yeah. And at that time, we had a policy. If they said, well, I experimented it in college a couple times, it'd be like, well, okay, How many times did you smoke marijuana? Couple thousand. And that's when they started to laugh and like, okay. Back up at Sandia Peak, teach those kids how to turn on those skis. So,
Teach him how to turn on those skis.
yes. Yeah,
So when did you retire in 2004 or were you
I retired.
how many years did you put in?
Almost 21, 20 and a half.
And were you like, what am I going to do now?
It was that was yeah. I thought I was just gonna go drink. And
Seriously? You
I
thought
thought I
like,
was gonna go to the bar every day and have a cocktail and come home and have a cocktail,
and watch America's Got Talent and
have a cocktail.
so what happened?
Well, what happened is when you're a DEA agent, you don't spend a lot of time at home.
Right.
So now I was home with my wife,
Uh-oh.
and she hadn't spent a lot of time with me either.
Uh-oh.
So after about 3 weeks, she said, "Oh, yeah, you ever think about maybe finding a job,
Yeah, or a hobby that you can occupy
Something
your
like-
time 8 hours
like
a
you
day?"
could spend like 24 hours a day at?" So actually, McCann Business School had just opened, and I got a job there teaching criminal justice.
No shit.
Yeah, and that kept me occupied. I stayed there 6 years, and then I took a job in Afghanistan at a narcotics academy and taught there for.
Yeah, but why'd you leave McCann? Why? Like, that seems like a
Well,
big.
it was-
you retired. You
There was a
retired.
big difference in money.
Well, when you have to fight camel spiders in the
But there were no bot flies.
that's true. But camel spiders are number 2 on my list.
I
Still want to go to Afghanistan, just see how it is, but then get the hell out as
I don't
quickly as
know
possible.
where they're at. I never
Camel
saw them.
spiders
In
are
the sand.
Camel spiders are in Iraq at the very least that I know of, and they look like the face huggers from the Alien movies.
Yeah, and they like
They're
jump
about
up
that- they're
on the
about that
camel's
big.
belly to like suck, and they're huge.
Yeah.
Google it; it's
We didn't have
disgusting.
camels.
They're terrible.
Camels?
No, camel spiders.
You've
They're
never heard of a
spiders.
camel spider?
It's huge. It's like the
have.
size of
When this
half
is
your
over,
body.
We'll show you. They're terrifying.
I watch Monsters Inside Me only because I've been to over 50 countries, so like I always want to make sure that I know what's around. So I'm very cautious of different things.
So needless to say, Stacey has not gone to Iraq.
I want to though. I do. I really want to go in and see it and like do like some form of film and then
Do you
get
want me
the
to
hell
order?
out.
Do you want me to order you a camel spider? I think we
No.
can. Okay.
I see the. Oh no, that's one thing. Go
Well,
ahead.
see,
Back to Dave
if I
Hess.
knew they
It's
were
not about
there-
me.
If I knew they were there, I wouldn't have gone.
Well, they have vipers there too. They have viper spiders there, or snakes.
Well,
I mean, you went to Afghanistan like in the thick of the shit
Yes.
that we were doing.
And you're like, I want to go.
2010, I went over.
It's still in the thick of the shit.
How many years were you in Afghanistan in 2000?
2.
So you from 2010 to 2012.
Well, I went over in 2010. I stayed for a year. Then I came back, and then I got the urge to go again, and then I went back over again.
Really?
Yeah. The second time I went over, I ended up being the director of the academy, which was the basis of my second book, Gamble.
Well, let's talk about the books, right? How did
I forgot about the books.
No.
We were getting to them.
No.
Your life is more
I
fun.
have a timeline plan here that no one else knows about. What?
Don't you have anything to say
No, she's a woman.
other than gotta go.
He's funny, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's funny
Yeah, as soon as
a,
this is over, she's gonna stick an umbrella up my ass and open it.
funny
so-
as a camel spider.
So, you know I love you.
I know.
And you could say that I'm stupid because I'm a man. That's okay.
No.
But it's
keep
true.
going. Keep going.
So how did you what was the thing that was like, you know what, I'm gonna write a book?
Which book?
The first one.
Well, the first one, he references his brother in the beginning of it, saying that his brother told him to do it every single day when he called him.
Yeah. Well, he just
Were
wanted
you
to
in
know
it?
if I
Were you in
finished the book.
Afghanistan when you started doing this?
The first book? No.
So where were you?
Well, I was in the book was. That's a long story.
Is the first book's Ambush, right?
First book
Yes.
is Ambush, and that is started as a short story when I was a young kid. When I just got back from Vietnam, there was
So this is like a book that's like 30, 40 years in the making.
kind of yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, in fact, I still have the short story that I wrote,
The original one.
the original. I
Was it
wrote-
handwritten?
Handwritten. And it was about this friend of mine who got killed. And it was a story about him. And I thought, someday I'm going to write a book about this guy. And I don't know. It was one of those, I don't know if you've ever had something happen to you that just, you think about it every day. Every
Yeah.
single day you think
Yes.
about it, right?
Mhm.
Well, this guy was on my mind every single day from 1970 until today. I still think about this guy every day.
Wow.
And so I wanted to write, but then there were typewriters, and you'd start typing, and you had to put the paper in there and back.
It's exhausting.
Yes.
So then when computers came out, I thought, I'm going to write this book. And I was out of DEA at the time,
So
so
the computers came out and you found internet
it
pornography.
was so much Oh yeah. But that's when. So I'm going to say I started actually writing that book in around full time around 2006 is when I actually started it.
But you were what? Stateside at that time?
Yeah,
I mean, do you-
I had
like-
only been retired a couple years.
I mean, do you remember like the first day you sat down to do that?
Yeah, and it was a weird experience because I started writing it and I didn't know what I was going to write.
Let's be clear here. Like you took English in college, right? But you'd never written a novel before. Or,
No, my papers weren't even good.
even your papers you wrote for school were shitty.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact,
So-
I have all my papers from Penn State. I looked at there and I C, D.
Did you?
now-
Did you out? Did you? I mean, in a weird way, you're living with this story for over 30 years, right?
Well
so you,
over 30.
So you had this in your mind, but did you
part
outline?
Of it I was. No, I don't do outlines. And this is what I was trying to get to till you keep talking over me.
I'm a
I
loud.
love this man.
I'm an Italian and an Irishman. Dave, just fucking crush me, whoever you have to.
But I started writing this book, and I knew what I was going to write about this guy, Slater.
Right.
And I got done with the first chapter. I thought, well, that's all right, but that's not good. So I went back. So something's got to lead into this. So I started a DEA story, and I thought, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to write this story about DEA and this guy who I called Crocker. And I'm going to tell his story about when he was in Vietnam. And that's going to lead into the current time. So the story goes from Vietnam, 1970, to that time. It was like 2002 or something, whatever
Right.
the years were. Back to the past. And it all ties together into a conspiracy. But the thing was, I sat down and I had no outline, and I would go up and I'd write a chapter. And I go, this is really good. And I get out, look at my wife, and I say, well, I just wrote another chapter, but I have no idea
where it's going or what's happening.
next.
Right.
And then a couple of days later, I go back up, and it was like magic. I'm not kidding.
I mean, you're saying that with
And
zero bullshit. You're saying
I had no idea what I was doing. And I would sit down, and I would start writing again. This is really cool. And I would write again, and I get done. I go, well, that chapter's done. I go downstairs. I go, well, I wrote another chapter, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah. Right time and
now,
right place
would
come
you,
together.
Like, would you have like a scotch or something while you do it, or are you just like you're in the zone?
No, just writing. And this then once I knew what I was doing, where I was jumping time, is what I was.
So
doing.
once you figured out the structure of what you wanted to do,
then after about 8 or 9 chapters, then I knew.
Did you have any more of those cross tops left over from Vietnam? Because I know they get you to focus, those amphetamine salts that you mentioned before.
No, I didn't have any.
no,
A good
he
Adderall will
had,
make you get those pages
The
working too.
no, he just went straight meth.
Yeah,
he just found,
okay, all right.
Yeah, I saved
that was
some
left
meth,
over.
yeah.
He knew the whole.
The
Okay,
bandits gave me
Yeah,
some,
he was in the woods.
he is Breaking Bad.
Yeah, he smelled something
Yeah.
and then followed the smell. I mean, was that to you? Was that a little cathartic? Was that like?
Oh, yeah, very much.
Did you lose yourself? I mean, would you start writing and you're
Yeah.
like, holy shit, 8 hours went by.
Yeah, it would be. I'd be up there for 4 or 5 hours and just, and then I got to jump again now on this story because this guy Slater, that
And this is all based on a real person,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
well, I don't want to give away the story, but
No spoilers.
he shows up at the end of the book, the family. So a relative of his gets a hold of me back in the 90s, and we end up meeting. And so it was really cool to meet this guy's family.
Right.
And about 4 months ago, I get a text from this guy. He said, "Are you Dave Hess that was in Vietnam with this guy Slater, whose real name was Cannell?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, I'm his nephew."
Really?
He said, "And I would love to talk to you." He said, "About my uncle." So, and I was just, I felt
You floored.
so good about it. So, in fact, he's a federal agent.
Get the shit.
Yeah, and so we talked on the phone, and I told him all about his uncle, and it was just really cool because he's only 30 years old, so he'd never met his uncle. He never knew except stories. And
Did he read the book?
I sent him a book. Yeah, I sent
That's
him a book.
incredible.
Yeah.
Like that's heartwarming
It
just to
was.
hear
It was-
it.
it
I
was
can only
kinda
imagine
cool.
how you felt.
Yeah, and his uncle had awarded a Silver Star, which is pretty far up, and so it was kind of cool, and I still keep in touch with Slater's sister.
So you write a book and then you write the end,
The end.
and then what? Like what's the process to get out there?
Then I'm lost. Then I'm like, okay, I do book signings, I guess.
Like, I mean, do you contact a publisher? Does a publisher contact you? What's the networking thing to do there?
Well, the ideal thing is if you have an agent, and I don't want to get into that because that would be a lawsuit.
I understand that.
I had an agent that didn't work out. So I went out on my own and I self-published it, and I started doing book signings and
But how did you
shoot from the hip.
like market and advertise it? How did you get it out there?
I would just on Facebook was the only thing I knew how to do.
You're shitting me.
Yeah.
So what year does Ambush get released?
2000
Don't look at me like I published your book.
13 or 14. I can't really see.
So everything that you did was
16.
networking on Facebook to get the book out there.
Yeah, and I, and I'm still pushing the book. I'm still pushing Ambush, but if I knew somebody that knew anything about marketing,
Don't look at me.
Don't
look at me yet. We'll talk about that after the podcast.
Yeah, we can talk about that later.
Yeah. But the book, if you read the reviews on Amazon, I mean, one guy wrote, I don't know who, and some of the ones they're your friend. Go, oh, my friend Dave wrote this book. It's really good.
Right.
You should buy it. But I have one guy on there, compared it to Salinger.
Oh, really?
He said, this is amazing. I hope he doesn't stop writing like Salinger did. And I've had some really nice reviews on it.
Can I tell you something that happened to me today?
Okay.
I know you
He
don't
always
want
makes it about him, doesn't he?
I don't know.
Normally that's the girl's job. That's supposed to be me.
No, you are way more
Into me and myself.
No, Stacey, I just you need to realize that you're a far superior person than I am. And so is Dave. But
let's have him have his moment.
No.
then.
I want to show you this after our podcast, is because I released a movie back in like April on
Is
Amazon.
it long?
No, it's like
Okay.
it's like 85.
No, it's pretty good. I agree with it. It's pretty good.
It was a $6,000 movie. It is what it is, right? But the writer came down today and had a framed plaque of all the bad reviews that Amazon gave.
It's amazing. They're like
And
the 1
reviews,
stars.
Yeah, the reviews to read are just brilliant.
The one says sucks. It just has 1 star.
This is the worst movie
Yes.
I've ever seen before in my life.
Well, we'll find another marketing company.
No. But it wasn't our marketing. It was
No.
just like the movie was up there. We got the word out, but some people didn't appreciate it for what it was, and
But there were still some good ones there too. And
there's some
they're
that gave
on
it 5
there.
stars that were like, "This is phenomenal."
It was me.
My friend Marky made a movie.
Yeah,
It's really good.
yeah.
No, but I do have to agree with them because I'm reading your book because I care, and it is really good. And I do.
My OCD is
I
terrible.
can't wait to keep reading it.
Well,
Or my ADD.
I've had people tell me they took that book to the beach and laid on the beach and got blistered because
they couldn't stop
wouldn't
reading
leave
it.
the beach.
Was it our financial planner?
Like, well, aren't you
Bernie?
stupid? But
Let's talk about Bernie for 1 second because you wanted to give him a shout out.
Yeah, Bernie Fagnetti.
Yay, Bernie.
He is he's actually the reason why I saw that him and Dave were friends on Facebook. So I assumed that Dave wasn't crazy from meeting him.
Yeah, right.
I'm
You
like,
got
do you
that.
know this guy? Just to double check because
You know
I
what happens when you make an assumption,
Well,
right,
we met
Stacey?
him on the dock of a warehouse in the middle of the day, and he's like, "Hey," So I always like to double check
Dave.
people. But I heard nothing but great reviews, and the first thing he said to me was, "Have you read his book? Because that should be a movie." And I'm like,
That
"All
should
right
be a
then."
movie.
Well,
But you're not making it.
my business partner bought the book,
Well,
so
no.
I'm reading
If
them.
you read the reviews of my past movie, I don't think you'd ever want to fucking make anything. I don't think you'd want to make a Facebook Live video selfie with me. I don't think you'd want to do any of that. So tell me, how was Ambush received? Like, what was the consensus?
It was all 5-star reviews, not that many. And the only one that gave me a 4.5-star review was a friend.
your ex-wife?
No, a friend. My ex-wife loved it, actually, and she's an artist.
Okay.
And, we're still very good friends, and she lives in Florida, and she's a tremendous artist.
That's so sweet that you guys.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, it is
and
really
she
nice.
Her name is Sue. She kept my name, Sue Hess. I guess but she's married again. But
I'm not laughing at the fact
she has an art studio.
No, I'm just laughing because
somewhere.
it gives me a lot of joy to know that you guys are still on,
Well, yeah,
on good
he's a-
terms and talking.
He's an author now, so you got to make peace with your past, so they don't like talk shit about you when like you're doing good. It's
Yeah.
like, no, he's a bastard. No, we're gonna be friends because now I don't know. Maybe she can come after you for money later. I don't know.
I don't know.
so then what inspires you to now move on to gamble?
Well,
And Ambush came out what, 2013, 2014?
yeah, let's see. This is 17, 16, 15, about 2014, I think. So then there's the main character in there, his name is Crocker,
Right.
and he's a pretty dynamic person.
Okay.
People say, "Oh, that's you, isn't it?" I go, "No, I wish I was that dynamic."
Well, I heard somebody say that the writer writes the world that they want to live in.
Who said that?
Kevin Smith,
Who the hell is he?
he's a director.
All right.
Yeah, who the hell is he?
So
He's a guy.
anyway, I had the job at McCann, and I was up there, and I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm having fun.
Right.
I'm messing with these young kids and destroying their minds.
Not all of them.
Pretty
Not all of
much,
them.
yeah. They're up there going, "Really, Mr. Hess?" Yep. This is the truth. What I'm telling you is the truth. Okay.
There's reptilian shapeshifters running the government.
And
I knew it.
It was great. So my wife and I like to gamble. That's our pastime. And then sometimes we'd gamble too much, and
So you're kind of like risk takers, luck of the draw.
yeah. And then I started thinking, what would happen if somebody literally gambled themselves out of money, and they had no money? How would they survive? How would they get by? So that's how Gamble came about. I made up a fictional story about these two people who gambled too much, and he has to end up going to Afghanistan.
But is this still your main character from Ambush?
Yes, and now he's older. Now
Okay.
he's retired from DEA, and he has a friend who's working in Afghanistan who's driving him crazy, saying, "You really need to come over here because I'm making a lot of money, and I have no money." Crocker has no money, and somehow his wife taps into his computer and sees all these emails from this guy saying how much money he's making.
Right. And she's like, you need to
So
go.
you need to go over there, right?
Right.
So it's a very, very funny book, even by my standards. It's funny.
Do you like, how much inspiration do you take from life? I mean, you never write autobiographically, but you're like, oh, I remember this. Like you pick little elements from life or that you've heard about, and then you throw them in there.
Exactly what I do. I never write first person ever. I never write I. It's always someone else. But I take all these experiences I've had and make little stories
and fictionalize them, and
it's some of them are the new book is difficult. It's a lot.
Let's work our way there. So
Okay,
I
we're
have like
almost
two
there.
more. I have like two more questions. How long do you think it took you to write Ambush from the first time you sat down?
3 years, 4 years.
And how long did it take you to write Gamble?
Gamble took a year.
Now, why is there such
Well,
disparity?
That goes back to the agent. I wrote the book.
Oh. I'm thinking like DEA agent, and I'm like, and then it's like, no.
And I wrote the book, and I had an agent, and we didn't get along, and I signed a contract,
And you were handcuffed.
and I asked him to let me out of the contract, and he was like, "No, you're not getting out." So I couldn't do anything with the book for 4 years. I just
Are
had
you
to sit
shitting
on it.
me?
So then I got my editor.
I'm gonna fix you real quick.
Okay, fix me up.
There you go.
So I got my editor, whose name is Frank Sabina, and he's a genius. He makes everything work for me. And he looked at the book and he went, "Oh my God, this is terrible."
Are you shitting me?
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, really?"
And this is Ambush, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he said, "But we can fix it." Like, okay. So it took us a year
Of like rewriting and restructuring
and he knows all about grammar and stuff. It's real scary. It's like, he just needs a period. A period? We don't need a period there. It's good.
Semicolon works fine.
Semicolons, no semicolons. Yeah, but he knows everything, and he's just amazing. I mean, it's just amazing what he
So
does.
minus the agent, how long do you think Ambush would have taken? Like if you had your current
First
guy
book-
now, your first edit.
If
you
I
your
had
editor,
this editor, probably 2 years.
okay.
Yeah, probably 2 years, maybe 2.5 years.
Now, did you meet him towards the end of Ambush? Your editor?
The Ambush was written already.
Okay, so you met him after Ambush is released.
No, it wasn't released. I was still saying, like,
'Cause he said
"Frank,
it was
I can't-
shitty."
Frank, I can't do anything with this book, and that's when he started. Well, let's try to fix it. And I went to school with him from first grade.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Up in Carbondale, looking at UFOs.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, looking up at the pond,
Yeah.
getting that pond, that spaceship.
It's not a lantern. It was plutonium.
It was- so he starts looking and he goes, "Well, it's a good story, but it's a
It's got
mess."
its issues. Yeah.
And he really, anybody that tries to write a book, I'll say that without a good editor,
You're screwed.
good luck
Yes.
with that.
Right.
Okay, because it's sort of like I did theater for about 10 years. And I used
Do you ever want to
direct.
act in something that we do?
No, I don't act. I'm a director,
Do you ever?
but I will direct you.
I want to see that.
But I
I wanna
love
see that
seeing
too.
people on stage without a director because it's sort of like ducks walking around. Ah.
Yeah. It's drunk lemmings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anybody who tries to write
Where's
a
the
book
cliff?
without an editor is out of their mind.
Right.
Yeah. So after I saw how good of a writer I was when he got done, I thought, man, I'm really good.
Well, interestingly enough, in our field, it's like sometimes like the editor is the one who saves the movie that you shot or the commercial that you shot
Yes.
because, you know,
Yes. I've seen it.
she's seen me do it. I
So-
directed it.
It is.
I did the cut and I'm like, this is fucking great. And then the client's like, this is fucking terrible. This happened a couple months ago. The client called me up and said, oh, we hate it. And I said, give me 3 hours.
Yes.
And in that 3 hours, I re-edited, redid everything. And they're like, we love it.
He did. He's saved feature films too. I've seen it. In the
Yeah.
last 2 years, he's saved a lot, and so I have to give him his due credit because he is.
Dave.
After what he said
Dave.
about you, I wouldn't give
That's
him shit.
okay. I probably said it about myself first.
Yeah, I just every insult that I say to Stacey is repeated from what she
It's
said
true.
before.
If you're gonna
Yeah.
hear it, you're gonna hear it from me first.
Yeah,
I'm not
Stacey's
keeping any
the
secrets.
first person to kick her own ass. So what? So Gamble. So you work with this new editor. You guys write Gamble together.
Right.
Well, not like he's an author, but you guys write it with his input.
Yeah. Gamble is an interesting. Some people, it's interesting when they say people have read both books. Ambush was much better. Oh, yeah, I like Gamble. Yeah. But Gamble started out to be I don't know, just a light look at Afghanistan and gambling and losing your money and what happens to you. And then as I got going into it, the first half of that book is so funny, especially if you know me, because you go, well, that's Hess. You know,
Right.
But then, and this was again going back and I'm writing, and I was like, well, where am I going to go with this? And what I wanted to show people was the living conditions that these folks in Afghanistan have to live in.
Deplorable.
Yeah, and that was kind of my goal. But then, as I was flying into Afghanistan the first time, I was literally flashing back as to the first time I flew into Vietnam when I was a young kid. And now I'm this old guy, I'm 60 years old, and I'm going back into a war zone with a whole different mindset, you know? I mean, when you're 18, you're
life
going in
view,
there.
perspective.
Oh, yeah, you're
everything's-
18. I'm going to
yeah.
kill every fucking buddy. You'd
Yeah.
be sorry I showed up here.
Yeah. And now you're
Yeah.
flying in
I
going
would've-
like, where's the soup?
And I'm like, exactly. I wonder what they got to eat here. This does not look good. Yeah, we got to have a problem.
But that's a
here.
cool moment. I mean,
It was, and it really was. And so then I get to where I'm going, and they pick me up at the airport, and I'm like terrified. You know, I was never I'm never terrified of anything. I'm terrified. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is crazy.
I mean, like your
people.
heart's racing, like anxiety.
Yeah, and I got AFib too on top of it. I'm thinking, I don't think they have hospitals here.
Right.
well, so does
anyway-
Crocker.
So you're
Yeah.
walking.
Well, that's
So you're walking around with a car battery and jumper cables just in case.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah. So as time goes on, I meet the guys, and actually we had pretty nice living quarters. I will say that we had our own rooms. It was pretty good. But then I started going. We'd go into the army base to pick up our mail and to pick up supplies. And the army base was 10 miles away, and we had to drive through Kabul every day, which
You've got to be shitting me.
and that was scary because every so often things go
Bomb.
boom. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I start talking to the young soldiers at the base. You'd sit there and have coffee outside, and they'd be sitting around. A lot of women, by the way. Probably about 30% of the soldiers in Afghanistan were women.
My
You're a
hats are off
personable
to
guy.
them because that wouldn't be me.
And it was pretty cool. So I'd sit and I'd talk to them. I said, well, how long you been here? Oh, this is my 5th tour.
Holy
I mean,
shit.
holy shit, really? And you would talk to me and say, well, you'd ask them something about the war. And they'd say, well, last night, in such and such a province, there was 3 IED. And they'd, when I was in Vietnam, we were like, well, how's things in Vietnam? Oh, good. Oh, we're good. Yeah, there was I don't know. We knew nothing. It was like, get on the tracks, you're going out to the field.
Yeah.
These guys and gals,
Shoot back at who shoots at
they
you.
knew
Everything.
They knew the war. They were better trained, I think, than we ever were. So then I start reflecting on my time in Vietnam, and this is what I put in the book. And I start comparing Vietnam soldiers to Afghan soldiers. Then I bring in Ernest Hemingway.
From the dead.
Yeah, I want to tell someone about this in the book, but everybody, these characters that live in this building with me,
Right.
are just a compilation of craziness out of my head. And so I know there's none of them I can talk to.
Right.
So I start writing a journal and a Dear Diary to Ernest Hemingway and telling him how fucked up he is because of the way he looked at war and how he glorified war. So you have a series of these diaries to Ernest Hemingway, and I won't tell you the rest, and that's what Gamble's all about.
So then you put the period at the end of Gamble, the end.
The end.
Were you saying something? Was I interrupting a woman?
No, I was going to ask about on the front cover of Gamble, you have the pictures of the kids. Was that for real from when you were over there?
I took that picture.
I thought that was cool.
I was riding to a base one day, and the road was blocked off. So we had to go through this little village where we shouldn't have been. But it was the only way to get where we had to go. The little alleyways. So we're riding down the road, and there was this, on the cover, you'll see there's a little girl with a pink jacket on. And I saw it, and I thought, this is the cutest kid I've ever seen in my life. So we stopped. I stopped the car. So I said,
much to the chagrin of all the other passengers.
I said, "Can I take your picture?" And she came running over. And when she did, the other boys came running over, and they were her brothers, and they all stood there.
It was a great picture. It's
And
on the front cover.
And this is nothing to do with me, trust me, because all I did was take my phone and click, oh, thank you. But had a professional photographer taken that picture, would have won a Pulitzer Prize, because it just shows Afghanistan. I mean, it's just the facial expressions, the colors, the background.
Well, the picture takes a million. The picture speaks a million words. Than
it's
this
just
one.
amazing.
Yeah.
So I took the picture of them, and I kept going back trying to find them again, and I could never find them. They lived in there somewhere, like a mouse maze, but I could never find them again. But I said, someday I'm going to use this picture somewhere. I'm going to sell this picture. I'm going to give it to somebody. So when we did the cover, I said, I want this on the cover. And that's how
I love that.
that picture.
Did Chad do your last cover?
No.
So how did you lose that bet to get him for Damaged?
Hey, I can't believe
He did a phenomenal job,
People
didn't he?
are just going out of their minds over that cover. The guy that did the cover for Ambush and for what was the second one?
Gamble?
Gamble.
I'll remind you of your books.
Hey, remember that, right?
Yeah.
His name is Mickey Copa, and he's a fine artist. Not like fine. I mean, he's
Like sexy. He's just detailed.
The Copa.
he's an amazing artist, fine artist, and he's a wood carver, and he can do anything.
Right.
He's just absolutely amazing artist, and he did my first two covers for me.
And then, so now, how is the reception for Gamble? Like, what, now that you have an editor,
Well,
and he probably has connections to be like,
I sold
not
more
just do
Gamble
Facebook.
than I did Ambush.
Really?
Ironically.
I mean,
yeah.
were you self-publishing that too?
Yeah, all my books are self-published. Yeah.
And they're all on, like, are they hardcover, paperback?
Ambush you can get on either one, but Gamble and the new one are just paperback. It starts getting real pricey when you start doing.
I know, you and I were talking about the costs, and it's like the costs are ridiculous.
And Amazon is out of their minds.
Well, it's
percentages.
It's like, we'll sell the book for 10 and we're going to take 9 of it. You get $1.
I think it's something like if they sell it for $24.99, you get 99 cents.
I think it was $23. I get $1.50.
Yes.
You're shitting me. As the author, as the creator, as the guy who did everything and approved everything and paid for everything,
Yep.
you get
So
$1.
buy my own books off of the publisher, which I get for a very reasonable price, and then you can sell them and you can make yourself 50%, rather than
Give Jeff Bezos a call and be like, "What the hell, man?"
yeah. Hey Jeff,
So
you know who I am.
let's move into Damaged. What was the inspiration for Damaged?
That was my editor's idea. He
You
said,
don't seem like a guy who does what other people suggest.
no, but he had a good idea. He has good ideas, Frankie. Frank said, I have an idea. He said, let's take all these characters from Ambush and from Gamble, and let's write a novel about them. Let's put them all into a novel.
Okay.
And I thought, geez, that's a good idea. But then I said, no. I said, I got a better idea. Let's do short stories. So I started.
So these are so Damaged is more like the stories that weren't told in these books,
some of the stories.
and they
yeah.
connect somehow. It's like the
If you've read Ambush, there's going to be stories in Damaged that you're going to say,
oh, that connects to
that's what was going on before he did that.
oh, okay. So you're filling in because
Yeah.
that's I think that about movies where it's like, what happened when they got from here to here, because it's like that could be a story in and of itself.
So instead of a sequel, I'm doing like a pre-sequel.
What?
Is that
A
yeah,
prequel?
a prequel?
I think you're doing a companion book.
Oh,
Don't you?
what?
A pre-sequel.
Let him make up a word.
prequel.
It's totally fine.
A
It'll
dolph-
be his hashtag.
It's a
Yeah.
prequel, right?
You can make up whatever word you want, Dave.
Dave
Hess.
Hess, fan of the Dolph Whale.
Prequel.
It's a well, yeah. If the books are already out, then you would be writing prequels that have to do with before or at the time. I don't know. It would be like Ambush 2.5 or something.
Make up a word. If twerk can make it into
Actually-
the Oxford Dictionary, you
actually-
can make up your own word.
Actually, it would be Ambush minus 2.5.
Because it happens before.
Yeah,
the first page.
It's rather interesting.
Okay, so some of the stories in Damaged are prequels to Ambush.
Yes.
Wow.
And all of them are related to post-traumatic stress.
Now why did you pick that as the theme? Because you think it's important
Well,
to
it's
talk about
not-
now?
Well, no.
And he has it.
Just because I deal with it
Well,
myself.
writers write what they know.
And I remember a lot of these stories. There's one story, without giving out too much, about this guy who was actually in ambush. He gets back to Carbondale, and he goes to this bar every morning. Every morning, 10 o'clock, and he
For the
just
third
sits-
shifters?
He just looks in the mirror. He doesn't drink. And there's the old guy who cleans the bar up is in there, and he lets him in every morning, and he cleans the bar, and he just sits there and looks in the mirror. And then eventually the old guy said, why do you come here every day? And he said, because it's quiet. He said, it's quiet, and I don't have to answer anybody's questions.
Just a simple.
A simple thing like that. And I know guys that did that. So stories
So that's not some bullshitty.
no, most of them are based on things that I observed, things that happened to me, things I did.
So is it safe to say that in Ambush Gamble and now Damaged coming out, that a lot of them are based off of experiences that either you've experienced or heard about experiences
Definitely. Yeah.
or friends have experienced?
Because I would hate to think that my mind could actually make this stuff up.
Well, truth is stranger than fiction. You know that.
Because it would be really, I'd be afraid.
So when are you expecting Damaged to come out?
Well, I just talked to them today. I should have the first copy out probably 3 weeks, and then by the time we review that and get all the errors corrected and that, I'm hoping by the middle of January. But that's
Probably
pushing
early
it.
February is probably where it's going to
Yeah, I thought it was going to be out the first week of December.
be. Well, that's ambitious.
No, that's stupid. Is what that is. And Frank always
Another
tells,
word for ambition.
Frank
Stupidity.
always tells me, Dave, it's not going to be up. Yes, it is, Frank. Okay.
It's possible that it could be out by then. It's just probably not a
It's
good
not
idea.
written yet, Dave.
Right.
But
So where are people going to be able to get Damaged when that comes out?
Well,
and,
I'll be
and
doing-
we'll keep people in touch
yeah,
about when Damage comes out.
you need to do that.
Well, I'm gonna fuck Dave. I'm gonna try.
Yeah, I will be doing a lot of book signings. And in fact,
Good.
I'm going to be doing a book signing in Carbondale probably the week after it comes out. And there's an organization called Rainbow
Coalition. It's run by Jesse Jackson.
No. Rainbow. I want to say Rainbow Bridge, but I'm probably wrong.
Okay.
And it's
I like how it's confirming that
guy
you were
I
wrong.
went to high school with. That year I was there. He is involved with rescuing greyhound dogs from racing,
Oh, that's great.
and so I'm going to do a benefit with him, signing my books, and then give a portion to the Rainbow Bridge.
Oh, that's so
for the
awesome.
That is
dogs.
awesome.
So
Now, do you charge for your signatures?
it depends on who it is.
So if they buy the book, do they get the signature for
If
free?
you buy the book, you get a free signature, and I'll even write goofy shit in there.
Oh.
No. You're not writing anything crazy. You're just
Oh, yeah.
writing goofy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dave
goofy
Hess.
shit, Dave Hess. So we'll be doing that. We'll be doing a lot of book signings, and gonna be doing some marketing, sending out some postcards all
I
over.
will help you. I will.
No.
Stacey and I will do
I
whatever
will.
we can. To
I'm
help
really
you.
excited too. I think it's awesome. Now that I'm actually reading the books, I'm even more
You
excited.
have to read the books. And you
I know.
have to read.
Now,
read
just
it to
now,
Mark.
full disclosure. Now,
Can you
full
read it?
disclosure. When I first met Dave came into the office like a fucking whirlwind,
That's not
and then
true.
started. Well, I mean, you came in like we've been friends for 20 years. Like,
I know, and that's
Yeah.
scary a little bit because, like, a lot of
It's a
people
little-
around
it-
here,
that's
people tell
off-putting for
you,
them.
people tell you they
Yeah.
do everything, and then you go on later and you're like, he's just a wacko,
Yeah,
you know.
there's,
So
there's zero truth
oh, I wrote
to all
books
these
and I've done
stories.
movies and I've been in Vietnam, and we're like, yeah.
Well,
So
that's
is everybody
what I thought
else.
about you guys. Oh yeah, they're so full of shit.
No, we are,
Dave.
Dave. We are.
Of course we
Yeah,
are.
But
did a movie.
but there's one thing that you can't deny.
What's
I
that?
said we would do a podcast. You're on the fucking podcast.
Yes.
Yeah,
That
we
did
are on the
happen.
And
podcast.
he wrote you a check out that first day that he met you for those
Wasn't that
books,
stupid?
and he's like, "Here's money. Come back and give me the books."
He told me right before the podcast, he's like, I feel really bad charging. And from the other room, I said, you didn't feel too fucking bad charging me, did you?
I did.
Like, he literally gave you money, and there was no books in your hands. He was trusting you to bring
What
stuff
do you think
back.
that was? Would
That's-
you
I
trust
mean,
his face.
I have
Of course.
my feelings, my impressions on people are either A, dead on accurate, or B, revoltingly wrong. So the people I meet in
Don't
my
gamble
life,
with him.
yeah, I'm the guy that hits on 20. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
I'm that
yeah.
guy who's like, I can afford to piss it away. My life has, in a weird way, changed ever since I met you. Like, there are days when you're not around that I think about, like, what is Dave Hess doing right now?
It's really weird because he brings that up too, and then we both kind of talk about that.
Yeah, and I got to sleep tonight now thinking about that shit.
Yeah. What am
I'm
I
like,
gonna
what's
do?
Marky thinking about me right
No,
now?
they're all good things.
No, it
They're
is all good things. It is
That's
all good
funny.
things.
I refer to you in a way where I was just telling, I've told Stacey this dozens of times, and maybe I told you, crazy in Northeast Pennsylvania is a term of endearment. And it to me, it means someone who's interesting, who didn't follow, what the cliche stereotype and what life should be. I look at you, I'm like, Dave's fucking crazy, and I love him.
Yes, me too.
That's nice.
But
Well,
if I
thank
was
you.
in Jersey and I'm like, this guy Dave is crazy, people from Jersey would be like, well, we don't want to meet
We don't
him.
want to.
We don't want a crazy person
it's a-
around us.
It's a nice thing to say.
And
Well,
I'm
I
like, no,
appreciate
Dave is like you, but you've lived life and you've put it down to paper and if God willing, man, there's like 3 or 4 projects on our horizon, but the moment I heard that like Ambush is that damn good.
Ambush is the movie.
Ambush, I now have to read it, and hopefully I can read it over the break, or Stacey can write me a book report.
No,
Now-
I
now
want
you
you to
can't-
read
you
it
have
because
to
we
read it.
read.
I'm a terrible reader, though. Like if I get to
Does
the bottom of the
Amazon
page-
have the thing where you?
read them the damn
Well,
book.
can you?
Oh wait! Do you do the book on tape? Is there a book on tape like on
No.
Amazon? Oh, son of a bitch!
But you should actually think about doing that later.
I did think about it, and I've talked to some authors who have done it, and it's.
Do you want to come in here and do it?
Yeah. What if we came here and did it? It is time consuming.
It's a big book.
It's a big book. So figure how many
pages?
This thick.
We'll take it a chapter at a time.
320 pages.
We'll take it a chapter.
But he's
at a time.
not
They're
loony.
small
Like
chapters.
some of the people that I've actually worked with in the past who wanted to do that, like we really did need to give them Adderall in their coffee because they're just all over the place. And I have a feeling that you wouldn't be like that.
Would you know how to do that?
I know how to do it. We've done a couple books on tape here already.
Yes.
Well, we could try it.
If it's up to you, but you gotta say the words because you're the author.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hey,
we
for
have to-
what it's worth, I got a new book started.
No, yeah. So my last question is like, what's the future? What's the future for
future,
Dave Hess after Damaged?
There's a book. I don't have a name for it yet, and I'm only on chapter 2.
Do you want to give like a brief synopsis?
It's going to be a fictional account of 2 DEA agents working on an outlaw biker gang that they have a lot of proof of all the bad things they're doing, but they can't get it prosecuted.
Why?
No, I can't tell you that.
He's so excited though. This is good. This is good. It's a good genre to stay into.
Yeah,
So-
it's better than romance.
It's debatable. I love Notting Hill. We don't want to keep these things too long. I want to say that I appreciate you as a human being. I appreciate you as an artist, and I'm very excited that you came in here. And let's make sure that we try to do one of these when you actually release Damaged, and maybe we can, figure out how to get to the masses.
Well, we
'Cause I
could
want
have
you
a
to
nice big book signing right here in this building.
That's too cold.
I was just saying if it would turn the heat on.
I can find a place.
In the spring when Damaged comes out.
Yeah.
I as close as I can to being next to a guy who I think is an incredible human and American. I just wanted to say thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Did you have fun? Was it nervous? Were you nerve-wracked about a podcast talking about your shit, or were you?
No.
You're like, what are we going to do? I'm like, I'll be right back.
Well, I didn't.
And I left the room.
Thanks, yeah, Stacey. You're right there. Way to support me, honey. Yeah, thank you. No, it was fun. It was fun. Hopefully, we'll edit about 80% of it. But
Nope,
yeah, it
we're
was
keeping
good.
it all.
All right.
And do you think your editor will approve of everything that we talked about?
Yes.
All right, good.
Yeah. Because if not, he'll just yell at me, and
All right.
he doesn't scare me.
I want to thank Dave Hess for being here, and I want to thank Stacey Toy for making sure I don't go off the rails. We will see you next podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great day.